Oh, hello there! Welcome back to Everything Bites. I'm Hunter Moore, and I'll be auditioning for any role as a Klingon in the next Star Trek movie. Before we get started on the review, I just wanted to take a minute to thank all those who checked out the launch of the channel and the first video that we put up here at Everything Bites. It went so much better than we thought it would. I want to give a special shout out to Austin Farrell /3 Creation, who has been supporting me for a while now, Tyler Alford for being the funniest guy on the internet and my partner in crime over here, and Anthony Fantano over at The Needle Drop, who is apparently following me on Twitter now. Alright, onto the review. Star Trek Into Darkness is the newest film in the 45-year-long saga of Star Trek, which, of course, is kind of the seminal series of space, the final frontier, and space exploration, and life aboard the Enterprise, and all that jazz. More importantly, it's the sequel to the 2009 reboot of the series, both of which have been directed by J.J. Abrams. Mr. Abrams has been working in show business for a long time now, but he only gained a large following in the past decade or so after his TV shows Alias and Lost became more acclaimed, and after he released movies such as Mission Impossible 3 and the 2009 Star Trek. Into Darkness is loosely based off the 1982 Star Trek feature Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, but when I say loosely, I mean loosely. Abrams and his writers, including Damon Lindelof, who has worked with Abrams on several projects in the last decade or so, and who wrote Ridley Scott's Prometheus from last year, seem to have taken a different kind of route with this Star Trek entry. They've made a movie that seems to be more inspired by the Star Trek saga at large, rather than trying to recreate an episode or an earlier film from the saga. It is, at its core, an action film, and a pretty exciting one at that. Lindelof and his writers seem to have no problem inserting a ton of action film cliches and tropes that are not only familiar to the Star Trek universe, but also to the more recent action film universe of the past decade or so. In this new film, we see a lot of reliance on tropes like Deus Ex Machina and general coincidence, and while these things don't necessarily hinder the movie from being fun and entertaining, it does kind of make the whole experience seem rather fleeting. The new movie follows the same cast of characters that we saw in Abrams' last installment. You got your Captain James Kirk, you got your First Officer Spock, you got your Lieutenant Uhura, you got your Bones McCoy. It follows these characters as they continue their 5-year mission in exploring deep space. The movie actually starts out like a traditional buddy cop film, set in space of course, reminiscent of movies like 48 Hours or Lethal Weapon. We see Captain James Kirk being demoted to first officer after his friend, Spock, tattles on him in a fashion, and they lose permission to go on their next mission. After a vicious terrorist attack by one John Harrison, played by the effervescent Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirk and Spock are reunited with their Enterprise crew, and they take off once again into space to search for this criminal / ex-Starfleet commander / mystery man. Naturally, this leads to some high-energy, fast-paced action scenes, some breathtaking visuals, and some not-so-strong characterization from Lindelof's script. Now, I don't want to spoil too much about the rest of the plot, so I'll just move on from here. I've actually really been enjoying the casting decisions on Abrams' part for this reboot. There were only a couple of performances that I don't really care for, including Anton Yelchin as Chekhov, and Carl Urban as McCoy. I think Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto are actually inspired choices for playing Kirk and Spock respectively. I think they're emotive when they need to be, they're restrained when they need to be, they complement each other really well. I just think they were good choices. I enjoy the supporting cast too, especially Simon Pegg as kind of the comic relief Scotty, and Cumberbatch is pretty cool too as John Harrison. In terms of the structure and the general craftsmanship of Into Darkness, I actually think this is J.J. Abrams' best looking movie in a really, really long time, maybe ever. I think some of the special effects and the set pieces are really, really mind-blowing. They also sort of pay homage to the old series and films without being too kitschy or tacky. I think the look of this movie and the effort that went into the making of it are very, very impressive. Also, I'm a big fan of Michael Giacchino, the composer. He's done work with J.J. Abrams for a long time now. He's also worked with Brad Bird on a couple things. I've always enjoyed his music and what he adds to a project. There are times during Into Darkness when his score feels a little overbearing. It kind of drowns out either the diegetic action sounds within a certain scene, or maybe just feels a little melodramatic. Overall, the craftsmanship and the effort really shine through in this film, and I did end up enjoying it more than its predecessor. However, I do, like I mentioned before, I do feel like it was a little fleeting, a little ephemeral. I mean, it is a popcorn movie, you know, it's kind of a summer blockbuster, but I don't think it's without its flair, its style. Abrams kind of tones his own kind of self-aware direction down a bit. Some of the camera work in this movie makes it really, really worth the, you know, $7 or $8 that you might spend to go see it on the big screen, even in 3D. I had a good time with this movie. It was a lot of fun, it didn't take itself too seriously, and I do think it's worth going out to your local cinema and seeking it out before the DVD release. Ultimately, I'm feeling about a 6 out of 10 if I were to score this movie. Thanks so much for supporting Everything Bites, we really appreciate it over here. I'm Hunter Moore, this has been Star Trek Into Darkness. Have a great one.
Producer extraordinaire. Your forehead sweating, sir.
I was born in sweat,
You might
molded
want to
by
sweat.
it.